Welcome to this new video of painting a mommy and baby. I think this is going to be a first of many videos like this to come because this is a subject very close to my heart, and this is also a big dream come true for me, and I hope that you enjoy this and love painting it as much as I did. I hope that this sketch is available. I'm not sure because I tried it quite a few times. I try to scan my sketches and they always turn out too bright, so you can't really see any outline, and as long as I can remember, this scanned version is also a little bit too bright, and so you can't see the whole outline all the way through. But I'm also going to upload the dark scan version, which is not, well, it's not very useful for downloading or printing out because the paper is just going to turn gray. So anyhow, using a very cheap flat brush that I purchased at a grocery store, I'm just going to wet mom's face, and I'm going to take my time here, not only because I don't want to go anywhere out, I don't want to spill the water out of her face, but also because the longer you wet your painting in the beginning, the longer you will have to paint wet on wet. So what I could do is I could re-wet my painting once I'm done with the first layer, which is I see a lot of people do, but it's just not going to be the same. Like if you do one layer but it's as good as it can get, that's the best. Using Escoda Perla size 10 brush, and I'm mixing yellow ochre and quinacridone coral here. The yellow ochre is by Winsor & Newton, and the quinacridone coral is by Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith is a pretty expensive brand, but I'm sure you can get a nice dupe. For example, I always recommend to buy White Nights paints because that's what I originally started with, and I'm still pretty happy with the colors and how they interact with my how they interact with each other on my paper. So I can highly recommend that. Buying the 24 set or just each color individually, it's quite affordable. It's not school grade. I mean, it's not like the cheapest ones, but it's somewhere in the middle. So I'm still painting with the same brush and the same color, but what I'm doing here is I determine where I want the shadows to be. So I want to outline her face, around her hair, and I also carved cheekbone for her, which is quite visible. So I just painted a line that comes right under her eye and her cheekbone area. And slowly but surely I'm going to use more and more pigment, and I'm going to darken the areas that I have just colored. And of course the neck area is always darker because our chins and our overall head casts a shadow to our neck. And the main thing here is just to be patient and slowly and gradually darken the colors. I'm also starting to apply color to the areas that was white before, So right onto her eye, onto her lips and stuff like that, because that still needs color, even though it's not going to be dark. It still needs some color. I could leave it white. I have some portraits where I just kept the highlighted areas completely white, but for this one I wanted to go with a soft peachy color. And then, as I always say, this just depends on your tastes and on your likes. So however you like to paint it is fine. So now I noticed that I should have kept the front of her face highlighted, because the light comes from the left side of the paper, so front to her face. And that means that the tip of her nose and the area of between her eyebrows should be kept highlighted. So I just lift some colors. And how can you lift colors? Basically, you clean your brush as much as possible. It should be quite clean of everything, and you damp it. You wet it, you put it, you dip it into the water, and then you have to clean it. I mean, you have to put it onto your napkin or tissue or whatever you have to dry your brush. So it should be wet, but not damp, not soaking wet. And that's how you just slowly start moving around the area where you want to lift the color, and keep cleaning, keep doing this process of cleaning and drying a little bit, or just, making sure that it's not soaking wet. So I realized that the side of her nose should be darker, and I put some extra pigments there. It's the same yellow ochre and queen coral that I just talked about, but more saturated, as you can see. And I think, as I can see just now looking at me painting, I use more yellow ochre here, and that just depends on how much you put in, how much yellow ochre do you mix with how much quinacridone coral. So you could go half and half, or you could go more yellowish or more peachy, depending on your likes. What I don't like actually is that a lot of people do is using straight ahead quinacridone coral, and I think this is just a personal choice. Like, I don't mind if other people do that, but when I paint straight onto the paper, I just don't like it. And now, as you can see, I'm still putting more and more saturated color down the paper. And the reason why I do that so slowly is because I don't want to suddenly turn too dark and make my girl, my mom, look like she is from another race, I think. I mean, if you want to do Spanish or Latino, black person, then you have to determine it in the beginning before you start painting, because that's going to require different colors, different shades. So if I were to say that I want to paint a Latino skin, I wouldn't go in with quinacridone coral. So basically, if you go way too dark with this shade here, then that kind of, it's just going to look very off. Like, it's not going to turn suddenly into a Latino woman. Besides from the fact that her facial feature is quite different, the color is not right still. So I'm also going to cast some shadow onto her eyebrows, or rather underneath it. And we're going to go in with darker color. I think it's going to be raw amber later on. But for now, just want to make sure that there is some shadow there too, as it is in real life. And then I'm going to lightly paint her lips and then move on to the hair. Using yellow ochre in the beginning, I'm going to determine the lightest areas of her hair. Like the top is going to be coming off as white. It's because I just want to give off a feeling that the hair continues towards the top, and it's always the lightest, the brightest on the top of her hair. And it's because the shadow, how the shadow is. It's going to get darker around her face and lighter on the top of her head. So just using these wiping motions, using mostly the tip of the brush, I'm going to just lightly follow or try to indicate how the hair is going. It is falling down and away from her face. And just right beside her neck is going down as well. And you can probably see that when I'm doing this here, that this is not dark enough. This is just our base color. So the more color you apply to anything basically that you're painting with watercolors, the better it's going to look like. I mean, obviously, soon if you just keep applying color without any kind of color theory and just mixing everything together, it's going to start looking muddy. But if you saw my cat videos, then you could see how vibrant and brilliant the colors could look if you start with, like, for example, very light bright yellow turned into a gold, and that turns into a deep and dark orangey reddish color. So it's just beautiful. Right now I'm going in with raw amber and I'm determining some darker colors. I'm actually not going to do too much to the hair. It's because I want to be the focus around the mom's face and the baby's face. So that's what I'm going to be working on a lot, making sure that when people look at this painting, that's the first thing that will grab their eyes, because that's where I want the focus to be, because that's what is this painting is about. It's not about the mom's hair and how great it is. It's about the emotions that is on both of their faces. Using this raw amber color, I'm going to determine the shadows of her hair, and I will just keep going darker and darker with more saturated colors as usual until I'm happy. By the way, in the beginning I don't know if you catched it, but I also wetted her hair at the same time I wetted her face. That's important because if you don't wet the hair area, then it's going to have a very sharp line where the face stops and the hair starts, which is quite unnatural for people to have. Using the same brush, I'm going to wet the child's arm that is on the bottom of the page, right in the middle. And also his or her clothes. I chose very earth tone colors for the dress, for the jumper. It's because it could either be a girl or a boy. I think the baby has very soft and kind features, but this could also happen like with such a young and small child. It could be a girl or a boy even, because they are all just so beautiful when they are born. So making sure all areas are wet of the clothes. At first I'm going to go in with yellow. Any yellow will do the job, because yellow is very easy to make in watercolor, so it doesn't make such a difference if you use a cheaper one or a more expensive one, until it's a good quality. Because if you just buy those, little hard ones, the round ones, that you can buy like 12 colors for €2, those are horrible. I wouldn't even call those watercolor. That's what the children has to paint in school, and it's such a bad thing because it instantly sets them up to failure. Because if you don't use nice quality paint, then you are just going to be disappointed with the end result and you don't want to try it anymore. Like, how many times have you heard people saying that, oh, I used to paint when I was a child, but I was so bad at it that I stopped and I never started again. Anyone can paint, and anyone can paint very beautifully. It's just that they used, when they were at school, very bad quality paint, and now they suffer from it. Well, they don't suffer from it, but they don't paint anymore. So now I switch to quinacridone gold. It could be my favorite color right now, but it's not, because it is a granulating color by Daniel Smith. Sorry, my baby. So sorry, my baby is up and awake, and you might be able to hear her in the background. Also, the wind is blowing, so that's another thing. So using quinacridone gold, I'm just going to deepen this rich, warm color of her jumper. And then going in with raw umber and even further darken it. In the end, it's going to be still pretty light. It kind of looks like a lot now, but in the end there will be no focus on his or her clothes at all, because we are going to go in with some greenery, and as I said, we want the focus to be on the mummy's and the baby's face. So when I see people try to paint, and what I have done also before was just contouring nicely and all the way around each object, each line, and this is why some of the times it doesn't look so natural. It's because actually the light doesn't come equally on each side of the clothes or the face or whatever. So as you can see now, I'm darkening the elbow area and also where the baby's face meets with the jumper. Those are the two darkest areas, and below her or his chin. And as I'm reaching to the bottom of the page also, because I want the focus to be out. So naturally we are drawn to look at warm shades and warm colors. So obviously you are going to look at the areas where the quinacridone gold and the yellow is visible the most. And to make it even, I'm going to add raw umber, but a very diluted one, to the areas where it's the lightest. And using only the tip of the brush, I'm going to draw in or paint in the creases. As you can see, where the baby's hand or arm folds, there are some creases. And I'm also further deepening the darkest areas of his or her jumper. So now in 2023, to be honest, I think that it is very fashionable to paint in a way that is more contrasty, and the darker areas are so much darker than what you can see that I'm doing. I keep everything light and soft because I don't like this trend. Actually, when you look at photographs of these modern days or paintings, you will see that it's very saturated, very rich colors, very much vibrant and contrasty. I think that's the right word. It has a lot of contrast. And yeah, it's not my style. So if you like that style, keep on doing darker and darker. You can even go with Van Dyke brown or even blackish brown and just soften it out so that it doesn't have sharp edges. And you will have a much more saturated color. I think maybe we will do a tutorial on that style as well, just to see how it looks like compared to the style that I'm doing and I'm drawn to. Right now I'm wetting the area which is right in between the mom's and the baby's face, and that's actually, if you look at the whole sketch, it's part of mom's dress because she holds her right arm up and around the baby. And I'm going to use phthalo blue to the mom's shirt or top or jumper or whatever, is because it's a beautiful color and it's going to very nicely create a background color, which I love. I love phthalo blue as background color because it's vibrant, but it doesn't draw any attention to it. It creates a very nice contrast in between what I want to be in focus and the background. So what I'm doing right now is creating the darkest colors around the edges where the jumper meets the baby's face and the mom's face and the mom's neck. So in the middle part, which is quite white right now, is going to be the lightest. I'm going to wash off my brush and using only a very light, very diluted color to mesh and water the inner part together. And using the tip of the brush, I'm going to very slowly and very lightly making sure that I'm following the line of my sketch. It's because if I don't, my end result is going to look very different from what I sketched out. So as you can see, I'm almost holding my breath back to create a nice and sharp line wherever I see that there are some edges that needs to be darkening. So right now I actually ran out of colors in my brush, so the middle area is going to be lighter anyway, so I don't need to water my brush, but that's what I would normally do anyway. That's how I would do this thing. and when it dries it's going to be very beautiful and kind of natural looking. And the thing is, to be honest, is that I can only paint when my baby sleeps, and I'm always in a rush, in a race with time. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about is what I'm doing here is making sure that I only paint in areas where, you know, the color next to the one I'm painting is dry already. For example, the mom's face. If it were still wet, the color wouldn't be so nice and sharp, and I want it to be sharp because the mom's face doesn't melt into her jumper. It has a nice and clean edge around it. So that's one thing to consider, and especially if you don't have children, you don't have anywhere to rush, just wait a bit and make sure everything dries before you go on. There is another style that I teach here on Patreon in my videos. I believe we started it with urban sketching, urban painting, and there, you know, there is not much time either when you paint plein air, and we just don't mind if the colors melt together. So there we are going to go in with melting colors, and what we will do there is using a fat pen to create contrast and sharp lines, and that's how we will end up knowing what we are painting at or what can be seen on the painting. But this video is not about that. So right now we are just painting around the areas that are dry or mostly dry. So I continue using phthalo blue and painting the mom's jumper, and right now I'm going just below the baby's chin, and that creates a very nice contrast with the baby's face and also with his or her jumper. And then I will go on and do the mom's arm, is where it will be visible that she put her arm around the baby. So that creates also a very soft and heartwarming effect while it is still in the background. So that's not something you notice first, at least me. What I notice first when I look at my painting is how peaceful both the mom and the baby is. And if you've been a follower of mine for a long time, this comes still from my dot painting era. I used to dot paint for 8 years, and there it was all about tranquility, about peace, about being calm, and that I kept even though the style has changed. So using a very diluted phthalo blue, I just painted the base of the mom's arm, and after that, going wet on wet, I'm going to darken the areas that are closest to the edges. So that are closest to the edge of her shirt and closest to the baby. And in between I'm going to paint creases. This is not actually easy, so just take your time doing this bit. As you can see, I'm going in with more saturated color, so there is quite a big contrast between the two shades of phthalo blue. So what I'm doing right now is just painting with the same dark saturated color the creases. And as you can see, it creates blooms, and it kind of washes into the lighter color. So what I'm going to do now is clean up this mess. Even though I think it's beautiful, it's not appropriate for what I'm creating here. So I'm just going to go over the area where the blooms end and melt them nicely with the highlighted areas. So just using like a ratio of half and half water and half pigment, I'm going over and creating this shadow and highlight. And after that I'm going to dip my brush into paint again, and using a very saturated color I'm going to create contrast between the dark and highlighted areas, and making sure that the edges are more visible. And the last bit of mom's dress is going to be the one on the bottom right corner of this painting, and I'm just going to go and do the same thing that I did before. First of all, I'm trying to wet the page with mostly clear water. However, this phthalo blue is a very staining color. You will see that your brush kind of turns blue during this painting process. And so there's going to be some leftovers of blue colors. It's not going to be just clear water. And then I'm going to go in with more and more saturated blue color to enhance the contrast between the edges and the inner area where I want the highlight to be and where I want the shadows to be. This could be up to you. Like if I could paint this again, I would probably go in with the more saturated color should be around the mom's neck and where the baby puts his or her arm onto her mommy, and then just slowly fading it out into a lighter, more diluted color, nicely transitioning. However, now what I'm going to do is also the bottom is going to be darker and only a stripe in the middle is going to be highlighted. But that doesn't really matter anyway, because we are going to go in with some greenery on top of mom's dress, on top of the baby's jumper, and behind them as well. So it's not going to be in focus anyway, so it's not that important. The most important bit, I think, is probably, as I said since the beginning, mom's face and the baby's face. So please let me know how you are getting on with this video or with any videos in the comments section. Soon, hopefully, I will start to teach in real person as well, and then I can, answer questions that you might have in your head but not formed into words yet, or you just don't know how to ask, or what's that you are missing. And it always gives some extra when you teach in person. I used to teach dot painting, and there I had so many people ask so many different questions that I never really thought about before. So I think it's very nice to have that. So anyhow, the last bit of this video is going to be the background that is still kept white besides the baby's face. But before that, we are still going to go in with deeper and more saturated colors to create contrast of this nice phthalo blue. And this portion of the video, this first part, is a single brush challenge as well. We are using Escoda Perla size 10 brush all the way through. If you have seen other videos of me, you know that Escoda is my ride or die. Since I found this brush, I do not use anything else. I have 4 sizes, and that's all I use to paint. I also have very cheap flat brushes to water the background, but as far as illustrations go, I use these 4 brushes only. And Yeah, I love it because the tip is very pointy and the brush itself kind of holds together very nicely, and it has a very fat and full body as well. After you use so much phthalo blue, it's going to take a while to roughly clean your brush. So just bear in mind that it's gonna take a while to clean this thing up. And after that, it's time to wet the background area. For this, I didn't feel like I need to use the flat brush because it's very large and the area that I'm wetting is not that big, so my brush is too small for this purpose, but I'm just gonna go with it because I can. And I thought for a long time what color I should be going in with. At first I thought it should be green because most of my paintings that I do for myself, or that no one tells me what to do or how to do it, I will paint portraits with nature, which I call botanical portraits. And then I realized that I don't want attention to be drawn to the background at all. So I just thought it would be more seamless if I used the same colors that I used for the dress of for the jumper of the baby, and also a bit for mom's hair. So the first color we are going to go in with is quinacridone gold. I love this color. I love the richness of it. I love that when you dilute it, it's a beautiful background color, and when you saturate it, it comes out as a golden yellow or golden brown color. So just using the wet on wet technique, I'm going to go in and paint the whole background area with this color. And please don't mind using the same one diluted shade. You are free to switch up and darken it. You will see that I'm darkening it around the edges, especially at the bottom portion. Going to make it darker and then going with quinacridone burnt orange as well to darken it. And if you have a look at life, nature, your walls, anything, you will see that it's never just one color, it's never just one shade. It's a mixture of different kinds of intensity, different kinds of soft and hard edges, shadows, and so that's what I like to create as well. Like the air is just not one color, but it's not one density, but it has different kinds of particles that you cannot see, but you can feel that it's not just one shade. Next we are going to go in with quinacridone burnt orange. At first we are going to use it very diluted, just like the quinacridone gold, And then later on, as we reach towards having a nicely colored background, we are going to deepen and darken it. So here you will see it in a second. I will use more saturated green acrylic burnt orange and add it to the bottom portion of the background to make it dark, but to match it to the other colors in the background. Using the same yellow that I use for the baby's jumper, I'm going to go around mom's face to highlight it, but only ever so softly, so you cannot even notice it until you know that I painted it there. That's the trick of the thing, and of course it's top secret. So this was part 1 of the video, and please let me know how you like it, and if you did it, please show me a photo of it, and I will see you in the second part. Bye bye.